Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here of KW Bonsai. Today we're going to be working on our avatar forest, which is going to be made to resemble the Avatar Grove in British Columbia. If you Google Avatar Grove, Port Renfrew, British Columbia, you'll see pictures of the Avatar Grove and it's really spectacular. So I want to capture that feeling of an old growth cedar forest. Have you ever seen a picture that kind of captures your imagination? I saw a picture of the Avatar Grove and it showed all the trees on quite a slope of the hillside or mountainside. And I really like that look of all the tree trunks staggered as you go up the hill. And it's kind of haunted me, and I want to recreate that with my Avatar Grove. So to get all these cedar trees to look like they're on the side of a mountain. So we're going to try and get that feeling in our planting today. So we'll be sloping the terrain from, at the front here it'll be the height of the lip of the pot, and at the back we're going to try and get our soil level quite high. So we're going to build like a sloping terrain. We're going to have to add a lot of soil at the back here. So let's get started. I'm going to remove all the trees from the pot. I'm going to try and remove the main tree first. And I'm going to just try and lift it out of the ground and keep as much soil in the roots as possible. Because I'm not really after, root pruning this time. It's more repositioning. So I don't want to disturb the trees too much. But let's see what happens. It seems to be lifting out as one piece, which might be okay. Yeah, the roots have grown together pretty well actually. Okay, I'm gonna put this over here. I'm going to reuse this soil. It's really good soil that I mixed last year and it's still nice and granular, so we'll reuse the soil. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a drainage layer in the bottom here. For the drainage layer, I'm just going to use this crushed red tile. And we'll just put a layer in the bottom. I didn't put one in before because the pot was going to be, the pot's not that deep. But when we slope our soil up, we're going to have a lot of soil here. It'll hold lots of moisture, so it's be a good idea to have a nice drainage layer. So I have my drainage layer in the bottom now. And I've sloped it so it starts out quite shallow here and gets, thicker at the back or deeper at the back. So it'll kind of follow the terrain a bit. So I'll be using a little less soil. So let's get our base layer of soil in now. So I've mixed our old soil in with the new soil, and I'm just gonna put a layer to cover our gravel and start to build our sloped terrain. So there's kind of a light covering, and on top of that we can plant our trees. I think I'm going to give that a water first too, just so it doesn't move, so it's kind of, our base layer stays where it stays put. There we go. So I think I was going to try separating the trees, but I'm thinking I may be able to keep it as one unit and just slope the entire thing and reposition the trees so they're vertical. I think I can do it. I'm going to try. Okay, so here goes the initial placing the trees on top, and we'll see how it goes from there. So you can see the kind of sloped effect we're after. All our trees are tilted, but we're going to try and straighten those out. We might have to remove some of these, like this little guy. Yeah, put him in water. Definitely have to straighten our main tree up to about there. So I'm going to try and push this soil down at the front here. So our flat root spread is going to have to change. So it's going to have to slope at the front and less of a slope at the back. So it's kind of got to match the terrain, our root spread. But I think in the end it'll make a nice planting. You can see our tree's almost vertical now, just by pushing all this soil in. Yeah, so the main tree's almost vertical now. I'm just gonna step back and have a look at it. Yeah, I like that look. I can see kind of the start of it. Okay, let's keep going. So I'm really liking this terrain. We've got a good slope at the front here, so we're gonna have to keep that slope continuing. So the soil's eventually going to be probably about that high at the back. So we may have to mix up some muck and get some moss to hold it all in place. And I'm going to get some moss planted around the front here because I don't want all these fine roots to dry out now that they're kind of exposed with the new soil line. So I'll do that next. I'm going to water them and then get some moss around this area because I think this slope is good here. And the tree is nice and vertical. So we don't really have to make any more adjustments to this area. So here we go with the moss. And we're just going to preserve all our roots there. There we go. That's going to keep a lot of those roots dry. We still have a bit more moss to add. That's good. The roots are covered up. They'll stay nice and moist. Let's give it a quick water. There we go. Some of these trees at the back here, I'm going to have to raise them up because I want my soil to continue to slope uphill. So I'm going to remove them if I can from the planting. These cedars never cease to amaze me how much root growth you get in 1 year. It's just amazing. There we go, there's one tree out. Put that in water. That's a nice straight one too, I like that tree. And we got a crooked little one back here. Got out. That's out. And this one, we'll just pull it. There we go. Getting nice roots with them. Compared to the roots we had last year, they're just really awesome. You know, there's no worries about killing the trees or anything. So I think the rest are okay for now. We're going to try building up our hill at the back here now with our muck. So let's do that next. So for my muck, there's a lot of recipes you can use. You can use peat moss in with it, whatever. I find this works well. I just use composted sheep manure, and I'll just put about as much as I'll need in the bowl. Well, actually a little less than I need. I don't know how much I'll need actually. What am I saying? What do I know? There we go. We've got our composted sheep manure in here, which is just, it just looks like soil. It's like a black, rich soil. Then we add some water to it. And you mix it in. And it makes a nice mucky solution or soil. Add a bit more water. We want it fairly runny because we're going to add some bonsai soil to it, which will make it thicken up. So this is still too thick. Kind of nice when you're an adult. You can still play in the mud. You grow bonsai trees. That looks good. So now we're going to add some bonsai soil to it just to thicken it up so it gets firm, like kind of like modeling clay, so we can form our hills and that with it easily. So I'll get the bonsai soil next. Here we go. We'll just try a scoop at a time and see what it does. Yeah, see, it absorbed it quite quickly. Went from a muck to more of a solid. And that's how you want it, so it holds its shape. So you can make a hill out of it. And it's quite firm. Okay, so we can start adding this to our mountain now, our terrain. I'm around back now with my muck, and I'm going to start adding it to the hill, following our terrain, sort of the same slope, like that. So I'm going to go quite high in the middle here, and probably not so high at the edges, just so we don't have our ridge line like a straight line across here. We want it to look interesting. So this will be like a peak behind this tree, I think. And we're still going to plant some trees in here, so we'll have to dig out those holes as you know when we get to it. We're far from being close to being finished. I did this technique on my larch planting and it worked really well. I didn't get any erosion or anything from watering. It just held the hill in place and it worked really well. So if it works, if you get something that works, keep doing it. So looking at it from the front now, the slope isn't as high as I hoped I could get, but I can make it a little higher than that, but not a whole lot. I think I'm getting quite steep at the back. I'll show you the back later on. I think the next step will be to plant some trees on top of that hill, and I'll, pile up a little mound of soil, so it'll make the mountain a little higher at the back with the trees, and I think it'll look better with trees back there too. So the first tree I'm going to plant is that nice tall straight one. And I'm going to position it here, kind of not behind the big tree, but beside it. The roots are quite one-sided on it, so I'm going to have the roots kind of draping down the back of the planting. Maybe? Yeah, I think so. So I've got some more muck mixed up that we wanted to get our hill even higher. So here we go. Let's see if we can do this. I'll bring the camera around the back so you can see what I'm doing. So you can see my steep wall at the back. That's about as steep as I dare go. It's it's quite a wall. But I think once it's mossed up, it'll do all right. It won't go anywhere. I'm hoping. So I'm just making sure all these roots are covered in soil and mucked in, keeping our tree vertical. I'm going to keep this little tree beside it low. So we're going to have a change of terrain here. And then we'll definitely have to get some moss on this to hold it all in place. I've seen mountain scenes before where the slope starts from one side and comes up and the trees are planted vertically. I haven't seen one like this before, so I think it'll be kind of unique, and I hope it works in the end. We'll see. We'll keep planting. I'm going to get some more moss to build up on my back wall there. So some of the areas that are done or close to being done, I'm just adding moss to those areas. Thin layer of moss, I just wet it and plant it. I've planted another little tree back here, and it kind of gives the hill a steeper look to it when you got trees planted back there. I kind of like it. So we're going to keep going, planting trees and straightening them out, and just trying to make the general scene look better and more convincing. I planted another little tree back here. I think it looks good. I've got all the trees positioned and planted. What I'm doing now is I'm building up little clumps of muck so the terrain doesn't look flat, so it's got hills and valleys and that kind of thing to make it more interesting. So anywhere where it's flat, I'm kind of building up little hills, and they'll get covered with moss. so they sort of blend into the terrain. Just need some up here on my hill. Yeah, that looks good. So I'm placing the moss on now. This moss will be with this tree hopefully for a long time. We'll keep pruning it. The one on the larch forest is, the moss is about 3 years old now. So you can make it last a long time as long as you prune it and stop it from becoming too thick. The only times I need to fix it is when the birds come in and they'll peck some pieces of moss away. So I'll come in and patch it up. But other than that, I leave the moss on. After a lot of work of planting moss and making hills and fixing things, we've kind of got our avatar forest roughed in. And for me it works. I really like it. I think it reminds me of a hill in BC with the giant red cedars growing. It's kind of, yeah, it reminds me of those pictures. I've kind of left a roughed in dry stream here. We've kind of roughed the forest in. Is it done? No, it's never done. We've got a lot of work to do on it still. We've got to prune the trees up. We're going to be doing a lot more landscaping to it, possibly adding ferns and rocks. Probably use those little New Zealand button ferns. They're a little tiny miniature fern. Things like that. We'll keep improving this planting as we go. One of the things I like about this planting is it really lets your eye explore all the different places in the planting. So it's a fairly complex terrain that you can only take in little bits at a time. So as you get closer to this forest, it just makes you want to explore more and look at all the little hills and what's behind those and that kind of thing. So yeah, I really like it. I think it's going to have a good future ahead of it. That's it for today. That's the start of our avatar forest. It's Nigel Saunders of KW Bonsai. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.